Hello and welcome to our channel. We are so happy to have you here with us. If you're looking to improve your English speaking skills and gain more confidence, you've come to the right place. Whether you're just starting out or already at an intermediate level, we're here to guide you with practical tips, fun lessons, and real-life examples to help you speak English like a pro.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of our podcast. We're so happy to have you here with us today. Whether you're a beginner or an intermediate learner, we're here to help you improve your English skills and make learning fun. We know it can sometimes feel tough, but remember, you're not alone on this journey. We're here to guide you and make it as enjoyable as possible.
Hey there, I'm Jasper, and I'm really excited to be here with Agnes today. We have a fantastic topic lined up for you, and I can't wait to dive into it. But before we get started, Agnes, do you want to tell everyone what we'll be talking about today?
Of course, today, we're going to focus on something really important for anyone learning English, how to improve your English listening skills. Now, I know listening can be tricky sometimes, but it's also one of the most important skills to master if you want to communicate well in English. It's not just about hearing the words, it's about understanding what people are saying and how they say it. And guess what? You don't have to be perfect to get better at it. We're here to share some tips that will help you improve and feel more confident when listening to English.
Right, Agnes. Listening is such a big part of learning a language. You can know a lot of words and grammar rules, but if you can't understand what someone is saying when they speak, it's going to be hard to communicate. So today, we want to help you learn how to practice listening in ways that really work. There are so many little tricks and techniques that can make listening easier and more fun. And the best part is, you can do it every day, even in small moments.
Exactly, Jasper. One of the things that makes listening so important is that it helps you connect with people. It's how we understand each other, how we learn new words and expressions, and how we get better at speaking. The more you listen, the more you'll pick up on things like how sentences sound, how to use different expressions, and how to recognize new vocabulary. And trust me, as you improve your listening skills, your speaking will improve too. It's all connected. The best part is that listening doesn't just have to be about sitting down and focusing hard for a long time. There are tons of ways you can practice even in your daily routine. And today, we're going to share some of those with you.
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the reasons people sometimes struggle with listening is that they feel like they need to understand every word. But the truth is, it's okay if you don't understand everything. When you're listening, focus on the big picture. Pay attention to the main ideas and try to catch the most important words. The more you practice, the easier it will become to get the meaning even if you don't understand every single word.
That's such a great point, Jasper. So, if you're listening to a conversation, for example, try not to worry too much if you miss a word here or there. What's more important is getting the overall meaning. And you know, this is a big reason why listening is such a powerful tool. When you hear things over and over, you start to recognize the words you've learned. Your brain begins to pick up on those patterns, and soon you'll start catching more and more of the conversation. One of the first things I always tell people is, start listening to things that you enjoy. Whether it's music, podcasts like this one, or watching TV shows or movies in English, find something that excites you. When you enjoy what you're listening to, you'll feel more motivated to keep practicing, and that's when the magic happens.
I couldn't agree more, Agnes. Listening to things you enjoy makes it so much easier. If you're watching a TV show, try turning on the subtitles in English. This can help you follow along, and you'll start to connect the spoken words with how they're written. And don't be afraid to rewind and listen again. It's completely normal to listen to something a few times before you get it. I promise it's worth it. And don't forget, it's okay to start with things that are a little easier. For example, there are podcasts and videos made specifically for English learners at different levels. As you get more comfortable, you can start listening to more challenging content. Step by step, you'll improve, and you'll begin to feel more confident in your listening skills.
Exactly, Jasper. You can also try listening to shorter clips or conversations. Breaking things down into small, manageable pieces helps you stay focused and not feel overwhelmed. Start with a short video, a song, or even a conversation that lasts just a few minutes. As you practice listening to smaller pieces, you'll gradually build up to understanding longer and more complex content. And don't forget to practice every day. The more you listen, the faster your brain will adjust. You don't have to spend hours doing it at once, just a few minutes each day can make a huge difference over time.
Yes, daily practice is key, and don't be too hard on yourself if it feels difficult at first. Remember, learning a language is a process, and the more you expose yourself to it, the more comfortable you'll become. It's normal to struggle at first, but with patience and practice, you'll see real improvement. So, before we move on to the next part of our conversation, I just want to take a moment to thank all of you who are listening today. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us, and we hope the tips we're sharing today will help you improve your listening skills and make your English learning journey even more enjoyable. Thank you for being a part of our podcast family.
Thank you, Jasper, for those great tips. It's so true, daily practice is absolutely key. And for everyone listening, remember that small steps every day will add up to big improvements over time. Now, let's continue with some more strategies and ideas to help you improve your listening skills in English. Earlier, we talked about how listening to things you enjoy can make the learning process easier. But there are other techniques you can use to really build your listening skills. One method I'd like to focus on is listening actively. What does that mean exactly? Well, when you're listening to English, instead of just hearing the DW, odds passively, try to be an active listener. This means really paying attention to the details like the tone of the speaker, the words they emphasize, and how they connect ideas.
I love that idea, Agnes. Active listening really helps you connect with what's being said. It's not just about hearing the sounds, but about trying to understand the meaning behind them. When you listen actively, you start to notice patterns in the language. For example, you may realize that some words or phrases are used more often in certain situations, or that speakers have specific ways of expressing themselves.
Exactly, and it's important to challenge yourself a little bit. If you're only listening to very simple material all the time, your listening skills might plateau. Try increasing the level of difficulty gradually. If you've been listening to podcasts for beginners, maybe try switching to something for intermediate learners. If you've been watching cartoons, maybe move onto a TV series or a movie with more natural conversation. You don't need to go straight to difficult content, but just slowly build up the challenge. And when you do this, take note of the new vocabulary you hear. Jot down words or phrases you don't understand and look them up later. This will help you learn new words in context, which is much more effective than just memorizing vocabulary lists.
Yes, and when you listen to something a little harder, don't feel discouraged if you miss some words or don't understand everything right away. That's normal. You can always rewind, listen again, or pause to take notes. The key is to keep going and stay patient. The more times you hear the same words or phrases, the more you'll start to understand. Repetition is one of the best ways to build listening skills.
Absolutely. And speaking of repetition, another fantastic technique is shadowing. Have you heard of shadowing before? It's a method where you listen to a short audio clip like a sentence or a short conversation and then immediately repeat what you've just heard. Try to mimic the speaker's pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm as closely as possible. This helps you get used to the natural flow of the language. It's like speaking along with the audio, and it really helps your brain connect the sounds with the meaning. Plus, it's a great way to improve your speaking skills as well.
I love shadowing. It's such an effective way to improve both listening and speaking at the same time. You get to practice hearing and understanding the words while also training your mouth to produce them correctly. And don't worry about being perfect at it. The goal is to get better, not to sound exactly like a native speaker. Just try your best to copy the rhythm and flow of the language. Another thing that can help is using slow down features. Some podcasts or videos allow you to slow down the speed of the audio. This can be really useful, especially when you're starting out. It gives you more time to catch the words and understand what's happening. Once you feel more comfortable, you can gradually increase the speed again.
That's such a great tip, Jasper. Slowing down the audio is super helpful, especially when the pace of normal conversations feels too fast. But just like with everything else, it's important to push yourself slowly to listen at a normal speed. One technique I really recommend is using both slow and normal speed versions of the same material. First, listen at a slower pace to understand the main ideas, and then try it at normal speed to test your progress. THI. As combination will help you gain confidence and improve your listening skills over time. Also, don't forget about the context. Sometimes, you might not understand every word, but if you understand the situation, the topic, or the general conversation, you can often guess the meaning of words based on context. For example, if you're listening to a story and you don't know one word, you can try to guess its meaning by thinking about the events happening around it. The more you practice this, the better you'll become at making those guesses.
That's a really good point, Agnes. Context is so important. It's amazing how often we can figure out the meaning of a word or phrase just by understanding the situation. And the more you practice this, the more confident you'll feel when you hear new words you don't know. You'll get better at making educated guesses, and over time, this will help you understand more and more. And here's another fun tip: try listening to variety. I know we talked about enjoying what you're listening to earlier, but it's also great to mix things up. Try listening to different accents, different types of content, and different speakers. This way, you'll become more adaptable and better at understanding English in all kinds of situations. You'll hear different ways people speak, and that will make you a stronger listener.
Absolutely. Listening to different accents and styles of speaking can be so helpful. English is spoken in so many different countries and regions, and each place has its own way of pronouncing words or using certain expressions. For example, British English might sound different from American English, and there are also many other accents around the world. So, by exposing yourself to a variety of speakers, you'll get a better understanding of how English sounds in different contexts. It will also help you feel more confident when you find yourself in conversations with people from different parts of the world.
And remember, you don't have to understand everything all at once. The goal is progress, not perfection. Little by little, you'll start to notice improvements in your ability to understand English. And the more you listen, the easier it will get to follow along in real-life situations.
Thank you so much, Jasper, for those encouraging words. It's so true. Every bit of listening you do is like a building block, and it all adds up to big progress over time. Now, let's continue and dive even deeper into some more powerful techniques and tips to improve your English listening skills. In this part, we're going to talk about the importance of listening to different types of content and how deliberate practice can take your listening to the next level. Earlier, we talked about the importance of variety and how it helps you get used to different accents and speaking styles. But now, I want to emphasize that it's not just about the accent, it's about the type of content you're listening to as well. When you're learning English, it's important to listen to a variety of topics and materials because this will expose you to different vocabulary, expressions, and speaking styles. For example, you might listen to a podcast like ours where we speak in a more relaxed and conversational way. But you should also try listening to news broadcasts, interviews, or even lectures. Each of these has a different tone, vocabulary, and pace of speaking. When you listen to news, you'll get used to more formal language and possibly more complex vocabulary, while a casual conversation will help you understand how native speakers talk in everyday situations.
Right, Agnes. Listening to a range of content is so important because it helps you develop a well-rounded understanding of the language. It's like the difference between reading one book over and over again versus reading a variety of books. With variety, you'll learn new words, different ways of expressing ideas, and even understand cultural differences in how people speak. For example, listening to a TED Talk will introduce you to more academic and formal language, while listening to a YouTube video or a podcast, like this one, will give you a better sense of how people speak in real-life situations informally, but still with proper English grammar. And as Agnes mentioned earlier, different types of listening practice will help you get used to different accents, and that's something you'll definitely encounter in real conversations.
Exactly. And one thing I want to mention about listening to different content types is the idea of deliberate practice. This is a more focused, goal-oriented way of learning. It's not just about listening passively while doing other things. Deliberate practice means that you actively focus on the listening material, analyze it, and try to improve specific areas. For example, let's say you're listening to a podcast and you don't understand some of the words. Don't just let it slide past the podcast. Replay the sentence and try to figure out the meaning of those words from the context. Then, look up the words and listen again to see if it makes more sense the second time. This focused attention will really help you improve.
Yes, that's a great point, Agnes. Deliberate practice is all about being intentional with your learning. When you listen to something, ask yourself specific questions. What words did I not understand? Why didn't I understand that? Was it because of the accent, the speed, or a new word? Once you pinpoint what made it difficult, you can work on that problem directly. This kind of focused practice is what helps you move from simply hearing the words to really understanding them. And don't forget that it's important to make mistakes while you practice. Many people get frustrated when they don't understand something right away, but remember that mistakes are a part of the learning process. Every time you struggle to understand something and then figure it out, you're actually improving. So, don't be afraid to pause, rewind, and make mistakes as you go along. It's all part of the journey.
Exactly, Jasper. Mistakes are not only okay, they are essential for growth. When you listen and don't understand something, it's like a signpost telling you exactly where to focus your energy. And every time you push through and understand something new, you build confidence. Over time, those moments when you're unsure will happen less and less. Now, let's talk about another important strategy for improving your listening: taking notes. It might sound simple, but writing things down while you're listening can really help you focus. When you write down key points, new words, or phrases that you hear, it helps you stay engaged and absorb the material more effectively. You can go back to your notes later to review, and this reinforces what you've learned. Plus, when you take notes, it makes it easier to spot patterns in the language, like common expressions, ways to form sentences, or frequently used vocabulary.
That's such a great tip, Agnes. Taking notes really helps you stay active while you listen. And when you go back to your notes later, you're reinforcing what you've learned and making it stick. Another tip with note-taking is to focus on key phrases rather than trying to write down every single word. The goal is to capture the most important parts of the conversation, like the main ideas and any new words that might be useful. When you focus on key phrases, you'll also get a better understanding of the structure of the language. And remember, when you're listening to English, it's also important to focus on intonation and stress. English is a stress-timed language, which means that some words are said with more emphasis than others. For example, in the sentence, "I can't believe he did that," the words can't and did are stressed more than the other words. By paying attention to how words are stressed, you'll better understand the meaning of the sentence and what's important in the conversation.
Yes, exactly, Jasper. Intonation and stress are key to understanding English. Native speakers often change the tone of their voice to show emotions, ask questions, or emphasize something important. This is something that can really help you understand the speaker's message better. For example, when you hear a rising tone at the end of a sentence, you'll know that it's likely a question. If the tone falls at the end, it's probably a statement. Listening for these subtle cues will make a huge difference in how well you understand what people are saying. One more tip I'd like to share is watching and listening to content that has both audio and visual elements. Sometimes, seeing the speaker's facial expressions or body language can help you understand the message better. For example, watching a movie or TV show in English can help you understand the context of the conversation by watching how the characters act or react. This can be a great way to strengthen your listening skills because you're not only listening to the words, but you're also seeing how they're used in real life.
Yes, watching videos or movies with the visual elements can really bring the language to life. It adds so much more context, and you get to see how words are used in real situations. This will also help you learn natural expressions, slang, and cultural references that you wouldn't necessarily get from a textbook. So, I definitely recommend watching English language TV shows, movies, or even YouTube videos with subtitles in English. And remember, the goal is progress, not perfection. Listening is something you can always improve, and as you keep practicing, you'll notice yourself getting better and better at understanding English in different situations.
Absolutely, Jasper. Keep practicing, stay consistent, and don't get discouraged. Every little bit of progress counts. And again, thank you to everyone who's listening today. We're so proud of you for taking the time to work on your listening skills. You're doing great, and with continued practice, your listening abilities will keep improving.